Today we're gathering around the campfire with Brian, a QHS member whose life is as exciting and grounding as a hike through the mountains. But what trails did he tread to reach these heights? Let's trek into the wilderness and discover the adventures that led Brian to where he is today.
This is my QHS prequel. I was born in the early 1960s in a small town in the foothills of the Cherokee National Forest in East Tennessee. My ancestry is English, Scottish, Irish, Norwegian, and Dutch, and that's on my father's side. On my mother's side, I've got French and German. And both of my parents, I've got Cherokee. Both of my parents, they were born and raised in this same small town. They grew up in very poor conditions during the Great Depression, and their families always had to struggle just to have the basics of life. My dad, he was born in the late 20s. He was the fifth of 11 siblings, and he dropped out of school in the fifth grade because he had to work on farms and in fields just to help the family make ends meet. When he was 16, he lied about his age and he joined the military during World War II because he had an older brother who was missing in action in Europe. Apparently, Grandma found out what was happening and she went and pulled him back out. He was a hard worker, very responsible person. He mainly worked in an aluminum company for most of his years, and he would get laid off from time to time, and he would travel wherever he had to find jobs. One job was at St. Lawrence Seaway up in New York, back when it was being built, and then in Detroit, Michigan, at a couple of car factories. Like I said, he never finished the fifth grade, but he was real smart. He could figure out things and build things, make things work. My mom, she was born in the early 30s. She was the second girl of two. Her mom died of tuberculosis when she was only 8 years old. So after that, it was just her sister, and her dad. Her dad was a weekend alcoholic, and on the weekends when he was drunk, my mom and her sister were abused. And my mom vowed to get out of the house as soon as she could. Later in his years, my grandfather stopped drinking, turned his life around, and was reconciled back to both of his daughters. My mom and dad, they knew each other practically all their lives because they both lived in this same small town. They became sweethearts at an early age, and they finally eloped and ran off to Georgia and got married in the mid-1950s. I was born 7 years after my brother, so due to the age differences, like I was the only child. I was shy, introverted. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. My favorite pastimes seemed to be daydreaming and drawing. But for my preteen years till I was about 18, I was raised in church. I was very active in youth group. My dad would take us camping a lot. I remember really liking my elementary school years, but it bothered me that there were groups of popular kids and unpopular kids, and I was friends with everybody, but I saw how it made my unpopular friends feel, and I felt compassion for them, and I just wanted them to feel accepted and wanted, so I pretty much hung out with them most of the time. They were some of the best friends I ever had. Only sports I played in school was football. And in my high school years, it was very awkward and uncomfortable for me. I had no plans, no vision, no motivation. I didn't really study. I didn't make good grades. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. It's just like I was a leaf in the wind and letting life blow me wherever it wanted to. I did finally get a degree in business management, but that's just to climb the ladder at work. After I graduated high school, I worked like at a grocery store and a department store. But in 1980, I decided to join the local volunteer fire department, and I loved it. 3 years after that, I completed emergency medical technician training, and then I started working for the local ambulance service, and that was in 1983. And a year later, I met this beautiful young lady in a hospital where she worked, and we got married in 1985. and she's taught me so many things about myself and about life. She's a real strong woman, and she's been through a lot in her life. We love going to concerts, especially the old artists from the 1970s. We've seen the Eagles, Three Dog Night, Chicago, to name a few. But sometimes we even dress up in the attire of the era and go to the concerts. But next year in June, we'll be celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary. And we had two sons, and neither one of them gave us any trouble at all growing up. There were serious issues in the local school system, so we decided to homeschool. Our oldest son is a director of finance for an organization in Washington, D.C., and our younger son is a dermatologist, and he lives about an hour away from us, and he loves to fish. We also have the most precious daughter-in-law and one wonderful grandson who's cleverly wrapped his Mimi and Grandpa around his little finger. So backing up to 1986, I went on to paramedic school, and I continued working in the EMS field until about 3 months ago. In July, I retired after 41 years of long service. I really loved helping people. I always felt that that's what I was supposed to do. I felt like I was in the right spot. People would tell me that I was a natural for that career, and they said I had a calming spirit. Each time a mother would give birth and the baby would cry for the first time, I would always cry with the baby. and there were other times I'd cry, like when I'd have to tell a family member that their loved one didn't make it. Sometimes I wonder how I endured the stress and adrenaline rushes and emotional roller coasters of experiencing the pain and suffering so many people over so many years. But I am grateful that the doors opened up for me, and this is what I was led to do. I'm glad I was able to be there for people in their worst of times. And I just hope I was able to be a positive influence or maybe help their suffering at least a little. And back when my mom and dad, they had the best times together in their years of retirement. They bought a camper that traveled across the country, went on several cruises with their friends. And my dad played golf up until he was 90 years old. When my dad was dying of asbestosis, he was in the hospital, and I was there with him, and I noticed that his billfold was laying on the bedside table there, and I was all sad and grieving already because he'd already made the decision to not have anything else done. And I asked him, I said, "Dad, you want me to go ahead and take your billfold home?" My dad, he looked at me and he says, "I don't care what you do with that thing. I don't need it anymore, not where I'm going." And he was just like a child that you told him that he was going on a big camping trip or something. And his attitude in that moment just made a huge impact on me. And now it's like I no longer have a fear of dying. And the way I see it, it's a win-win either way. But anyway, my dad passed over in 2020 at the age of 91. And my wife and I moved in with my mom to take care of her because she had end stages of Alzheimer's. And she passed away at the age of 88 in 2021. The story I'm going to tell you now leads up to how I found QHS. Around 1967, I was laying in bed. I guess I was about 5 years old. I remember I wasn't sleepy at all, and I was laying there. It must have been a full moon because I could see the moonlight shining through the sheer curtains onto the floor, and it's just beautiful. It was so quiet and peaceful, and I was just really enjoying that moment. And then suddenly, a shadow in the shape of a large head appeared in the window. And I just clenched my eyes shut, held my breath, hoping it would go away. And my brother was asleep in the bed across the room from me. And I thought, I'll scream out and wake him up, and maybe mom and dad, but I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. It was like I was paralyzed. And I just kept my eyes shut, And next thing I remember, I was waking up the next morning, and to this day, I still don't have any other memories other than that. And as I got older, I found myself drawn to finding all kinds of articles, books, whatever, on extraterrestrials, things like Bigfoot, anything considered unusual. When I read about the abductions, I noticed how a lot of their accounts were similar to mine back in 1967. And then, after the diabolical attack of COVID-19, I started waking up and seeing all kinds of major red flags everywhere. I decided not to get any vaccinations. I stopped watching mainstream media, started watching alternative news on podcasts and stuff online. And I stumbled across this guy named Alex Collier. And I just couldn't get enough of him. Everything he talked about just really connected with me. One day he was talking about an organization that is using frequencies to heal people. He said it's the same technology Nikola Tesla used back in his day. He said the name of the organization was Quantum Healing Systems. Everything within me said, this is it. And without hesitation, I immediately started looking into it. And I became a member of QHS in June of 2022. And thank you, Alex. I also brought my wife, her sister, and her husband into our QHS family. And all throughout my life, I've never really had any major medical problems, no surgeries, no injuries. My last checkup, my cholesterol was up a little bit. But ever since then, when I started wearing the V6 device in August 2022, I noticed feeling happier, at peace. I'm able to think clearer, and the terrible mental fog that I had all my life was gone completely. And it's just like I have this feeling of excitement, like something wonderful is about to happen. I don't think we know what that is. But anyway, I used to have sciatic pain, shoulder and knee pain, but after wearing the device, I don't have that anymore. And now I'm 62 years old. Only issues I really have now, I might have an occasional episode of GERD, maybe once a month. I do have constant ringing in my ears. I have some eye issues like dry eye syndrome, farsighted. I have floaters, inactive histoplasmosis, what my eye doctor said. And that's why I signed up for the vision and hearing study. But I'm so excited about the new V9 device and the new healing system, the home healing system, and the QArc, and I can't wait to see what they do. And I believe that our purpose on this earth is to love and serve one another. And I hope I'm able to continue my service to humanity by working with QHS. Who knows? Maybe I'll have a fleet of ambulances that can pick up invalid patients and take them to QArc centers. Or even better yet, maybe I can have an ambulance that's anti-gravity, has a QArc in it, and I can respond to scenes and accident scenes and illness scenes and treat people right there at that time. I like that idea. But anyway, when the RV hits, I'll see to it that QHS is fully funded. And that is something that I'm really looking forward to. I also have several other humanitarian projects that I plan to be involved in. But anyway, now I want to pray a prayer of blessings and protection on all the Quantum Healing System admin team, over Dr. A and all his research and development team, and over all you wonderful people in this beautiful proof-of-concept study. So be it. I love you all.
Join us on the Prequel, where every story matters and every voice is heard. Because here at QHS, we're all about healing, learning, and growing together.